Welcome to Creative Arts Apothecary. I'm your host, Marina Tselner, and I'm so happy to introduce my guest, Julie Simon. Julie Simon is a licensed psychotherapist and life coach with 27 plus years of experience helping overeaters and imbalanced eaters stop dieting, heal their relationships with themselves and their bodies, lose excess weight, and keep it off. She's author of one of my favorite books, When Food is Comfort, Nurture Yourself Mindfully, Rewire Your Brain, and End Emotional Eating. Also, she's author of the Emotional Eater's Repair Manual. She's a lifelong fitness enthusiast. She's also a certified personal trainer with over 25 years of experience designing exercise and nutrition programs for various populations. Julie is also the founder and director of the popular Los Angeles-based 12-week emotional eating recovery program, which offers an alternative to dieting by addressing the mind, body, and spirit imbalances underlying overeating. Her professional experience with and personal journey through childhood trauma, weight challenges, and body, brain, and spiritual imbalances led to the creation of this 12-week program, which she has been running for 25 years. For more information and inspiration, you can visit her online at www.overeatingrecovery.com. Julie, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining. It's such a treat. And we were talking earlier, like what's the connection? How are the arts related to the eating, overeating, emotional eating? And so I run these intuitive art classes online. And one of my all-time most popular subject was when we addressed eating. I called it Cosmic Cake, but I shared about my own journey and that I had the most responses. Really, it was pretty mind-blowing. I was like, oh, I'm not alone. Reminded me of you right away. So I'm really glad that you responded. What do you see a connection there? Can you talk about a connection there between creativity and our relationship with ourselves and relationship to food?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just off the top of my head about creativity, since I'm not an expert on that, but to tie it into food and eating issues, I think creativity comes from a place inside of us, and probably the more free we are and unconstrained, probably the more our creativity flows. Although, many people have said, whatever creative field they're in, they have said, oh my God, like if all my anxiety and depression goes away, maybe I won't be so funny or I won't be so creative. So I think lots of creativity happens even when, we don't have it all together and when we're having anxiety or emotional issues. But then there are things that I think that can be, can block creativity or deplete us in ways so that we're not as creative. And I think emotional eating is one of those things. If our emotional eating is out of control enough, if it's problematic enough, it may be getting in the way of our creative self. And we may find, oftentimes people will say to me, gee, I'd like to write a book, or I'd like to, be a singer or an artist or whatever. And, I'm at home kind of binging and overeating and, I'm not getting to those creative parts of me, or I am creative in certain ways, but I think I could be so much more creative, if I were happier or if I were, more connected to myself. So I think there's definitely a place for everyone, for taking a look at whether emotional eating is an issue for you and whether it needs to be addressed, right? We all do a certain amount of emotional eating. So it's natural, if we go out, with a friend for coffee and we have a pastry, or a meal is so delicious, that we take seconds. We all do a certain amount of emotional eating. Really, the problem is if we're doing enough emotional eating that our health is getting compromised, or our weight, we're gaining too much weight, then we'll know that there's something going on with my eating where I'm getting into trouble. And perhaps, like we said, perhaps I'm not doing the things I'd like to be doing because of my emotional eating. So then we want to take a look at emotional eating itself and address it. That's where I come in.
So can you go more in depth on what is it? What is this fascinating subject, emotional eating? I didn't realize about the emotional component. I mean, I just thought it was like it was a kind of consolation prize, but I was clueless to any of this.
Well, I want to read something, and this comes from my second book. I want to read, it's a checklist, and it's in my second book where people can kind of figure out if they actually are an emotional eater. Like, how would you know what really constitutes emotional eating? So I'm going to give you some of the things on the checklist. I use food as a tranquilizer to dull emotions that are difficult to cope with, such as anxiety, anger, sadness, frustration, hopelessness, loneliness, shame, guilt, and even happiness and excitement and joy. I use food to calm me when I'm experiencing unpleasant bodily sensations like agitation, nervousness, or muscle tension. I use food for soothing and comfort. I use food for pleasure, escape, fulfillment, and excitement. We all do that one a little bit. I eat when I'm stressed out. I eat when I feel numb. I'm not feeling much of anything. I use food to silence negative, critical, self-defeating thoughts and quiet my mind. I eat when I'm overwhelmed and I feel paralyzed. I eat to distract myself from low motivation states like boredom, lethargy, or apathy. I eat as a way to procrastinate. I eat because my life lacks purpose, meaning, inspiration, and passion. I try to fill up an inner emptiness with food. I eat because I feel so much regret regarding my life. I eat because I feel deprived in life. I eat to reward myself. I eat to punish myself. I eat to rebel against someone or something. I eat because feeling full makes me feel safe. I eat to ward off sexual attention. And my preoccupation with food and weight keeps me from moving forward in my life. And that's what I was talking about with the creativity, that sometimes it can block us from moving forward, right? Especially if we're not feeling well, or if we're having food hangovers and we're not getting going in the morning, So emotional eating is definitely something to be addressed, right?
Absolutely. I remember working once with a nutrition coach, and she said, I mean, God bless her, she was amazing. She said, "You don't need a coach, you need a therapist. This is something totally outside of my domain." So it's so fascinating that you bring all of that together.
Well, I think the most important thing to understand, well, a couple of things. First off is, how do we become an emotional eater? Like, many people I work with will tell me that it started when they were very young. And how does it happen? And what research shows is that when we don't get sufficient and consistent emotional nurturance in our early years, our brain gets wired in a particular way that we find it difficult to soothe and comfort ourselves, and we're more apt to turn outside of ourselves for comfort and soothing, especially to things like drugs and alcohol. So it's not getting sufficient and consistent emotional nurturance. And what that means, it doesn't mean your parents didn't love you. Oftentimes, very loving, caring parents just are missing some skills, things that they didn't learn themselves. And so, for example, let's say you come home from school and you say, nobody picked me for the team today, and I'm very upset. And your mother says, "Oh gosh, let's go bake some cookies," right? So she's very kind and loving, but she doesn't know how to nourish you, and she doesn't know how to do what we call attune to you. And what would be nicer is if she said, "I'm so sorry that happened. I'm wondering what you're feeling about it," and gives you an opportunity to express, "I feel frustrated, I feel angry, I feel hurt," and allows you to feel all those feelings, and then guides you in meeting your needs, and doesn't rush, to bake cookies, or, your mother could say, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry that happened. Let's go out and shop. Let's go buy you something new," right? So what's happening is the parent that is missing those skills is not teaching you how to move through emotion. She's teaching you how to turn to a substance or turn to an activity to distract yourself but not how to process through. So what we have to learn, if we find that we're moving through our lives and we're emotionally eating, we have to learn how to tune in to what I call the feeling self, to the part of us that has all those emotions. And we have to learn to pay attention, right? To kind of pop the hood, if you will, pop the hood on the car. And like a master mechanic, listen, what's going on under the hood? Oh, I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling angry. I'm noticing an agitation in my body. I'm noticing a racy feeling inside of me. I'm feeling restless. Go inside, pop the hood and take a look at what's going on. We're also going to want to address our needs. When I'm feeling like this, what is it that I need? So let's say a mother, you come home from the team and nobody picked you and you're feeling frustrated and upset, and your mother says, well, what's going on? What do you feel after that happens, sweetie? And you say frustrated, angry, hurt, mad, Janie, picked all the people she likes, but she didn't pick me because she doesn't like me. And then your mother helps you understand what you need. Well, in a situation like that, it's very frustrating, that someone's been so unfair. So your mother starts by validating. It's really frustrating when something so unfair has happened. And, in a situation like this, maybe we need to understand that Janie isn't a very nice person. And maybe we don't really want to be on Janie's team, if that's how she is, however your parent helps you through it, it's the processing of all that, that allows a child to connect to her feelings. And that's the key word, is connection. So emotional eating is all about disconnection. We turn to food because we've disconnected from that feeling self. We don't know what to do with all the feelings that we're flooded with. Every single day, all of us have a myriad of feelings that we experience and bodily sensations every single day. And we often don't know what to do with them. We don't know how to address them. And we don't know how, and all these emotions and bodily sensations that we have every day are precious signals. They're incredibly precious signals from within, there to guide us in meeting our needs, right? So when you're out at night down a street and you hear a loud growl and the emotion of fear comes up, that fear is there. That emotion is there to instruct you. Fear means get away from this. We hear a growl, get away, right? So our emotions are very important, and animals are very connected to their emotions. They feel something and they move on it. Many humans have disconnected from our emotions. In the modern world, we disconnect and we don't pay attention. And we can get into trouble. If you're a female in a building late in the evening and you start to press the elevator button and a unsavory character is in that elevator, something's going to go on in your body. And if you don't pay attention to that, something bad could happen, right? So we want to be connecting again to our emotions and our bodily sensations, letting them guide us to our needs. What do I need to do? In the elevator situation, oh, that looks like an unsavory character. I need to pretend like I forgot something and get away and not take that elevator with that person. But we have to be paying attention, right? If we're on our phone and we look and we see the person, but we're not registering what our heart is racing, we get in and then we think, oh my God, why did I do this? Right?
Seems simple enough to just connect with what you're feeling. But there's so many resistances to that. Just saying that, like, in me, I feel like I'm closing off to, I don't want to feel that feeling. But you're saying there's a point to it. It leads us to where we need to go.
Well, the other thing is I think one of the reasons we don't want to feel those feelings is that, and this is the other critical piece in my work, is that, again, if we didn't get that really nourishing, sufficient and consistent emotional nurturance in our early years, our brain wouldn't have wired in a particular way where we would develop a nurturing voice in our own head. So when we hear our parents or caregivers, grandparents, whoever, nurturing us and saying, I'm sorry you're feeling that way, sweetheart. That was not very fair of the girl on the team. I know you're upset. When we hear that, we develop that kind of voice in our head that says, I'm sorry you're upset to yourself. That was unfair, right? When we don't have those voices modeled, we don't develop that part of the brain well enough, that nurturing part of the brain. The nurturing part of the brain is also the self-regulatory part of the brain. It's the part of the brain that can help us regulate those behaviors. Like, I've had enough cookies, I'm not going to have any more. I've had enough to eat, I'm going to stop now. I had enough to drink, I'm not going to drink anymore. It's that same part of the brain that nurtures us that also sets gentle and effective limits. So for those of us that came from a background where we didn't get, either we just didn't get sufficient and consistent nurturing from very kind, loving parents, or worst case, we had trauma and abuse, we didn't develop that part of the brain. So in all the years of my work, when I was practicing different skills and trying different things with myself, and this was long before we knew about the neuroscience, about how we can actually rewire the brain, I was practicing skills and techniques, and things were changing in my own brain. I was becoming more nurturing of myself, and I was more able to stop my overeating and binging behaviors. And so it became critical for me to develop that nurturing voice. I had very little exposure to it, but where I did have exposure, I was kind of copying like the voice of my grandmother a little bit, or the voice of a friend a little bit, and learning to copy that voice. So let's take an example. Let's say you're coming home from work and you're driving home and you've had a really hard day, and all you can think of is stopping at the drive-thru and getting a cheesy burger and fries and a big shake. And you know that you need to stop doing that because you've gained a lot of weight and your health is suffering from that, but that's all you want, okay? So I say, okay, when you get to the drive-thru, just pull in the parking lot for 15 minutes. Keep a little pad of paper with you because you'd be more focused if you write. Give yourself permission to go ahead and have the cheesy burger and the fries and the shake if you want it. Don't try and tell your feeling self she can't have, or he can't have what she wants. But say, before we have that, bring that inner nurture voice. I want to know what you're feeling. Okay. So you say, okay, I can still have it. So I'm in the parking lot and I write down, well, I'm really upset about what my boss said to me today. I thought what he said was very unkind. And I'm really hurt by what my coworker did. She excluded me in a meeting and I feel really hurt about that. I'm also feeling really drained from work. I'm feeling really tired. I'm just upset in general. Okay. So we bring in the inner nurture voice. Just some few little steps I'll share with you right now. We have even more steps that we go into in the book, but bring that inner nurture voice in just to validate. Of course, you're feeling upset that your boss said that to you. It was a very unkind remark that he made. And it makes sense that you're feeling hurt that you were excluded by the coworker. Of course, you're feeling that way. And work has been so big and overwhelming lately that it just makes sense that you're draining, right? Now, research shows that just the act of writing down your emotions, okay? Just the act of writing down your emotions regulates your nervous system, begins the process of regulating your nervous system, calming you down. Even that can stop a binge, for example, or stop an urge to eat. So just the act of writing down your emotions, okay? Now, when we're bringing in a nourishing voice that validates, now I'm noticing I'm in the parking lot and I'm feeling a little more calm. I didn't really realize when I drove in that I was really uptight, but I'm noticing I'm feeling a little bit more calm. So now the inner nurture says, what do you need? What are you really needing? Because we really don't need a cheesy burger and fries and a shake, and we can have it if we want it, but what are you really needing? And so you write down, I guess from my boss, I'm needing a little bit more patience and kindness. I guess from my coworker, I'm needing some understanding that I'd like to be included in these meetings. I'm needing some understanding of that and also some kindness from her. I guess in terms of feeling really drained from work, maybe I need a little mini vacation. Maybe I really need to plan a few days off and get out of town, like not just be at home, but get out of town. I'm just needing some really good rest and relaxation. Now you're noticing you're feeling much better, right? Like just this little exercise you did with yourself where you connected. I call it self-connection, where you stop and you pop the hood and you connect to your feeling self. And you connect the parts, you connect a nurturing voice with the feeling self. So you identified what you need. And now we wrap up this little session in the car. We wrap up this little session with the inner nurturer saying, did I tell you how much I love you today? Did I tell you how special you are to me? Now, of course, you don't have to use my words. You can use your own. And in the books, both books, I give you all kinds of soothing phrases, words and phrases to use if the language of love is unfamiliar to you. Your inner nurture says, I love you and I care about you and you're very important to me. And, together we can work on this together. We can have a talk. Our boss does tend to be open. We can find a time, when he seems relaxed and we can talk to him about, his critical kind of remarks. And our coworker, most of the time, she's really a nice person and we can say to her, gee, if, when you don't include me on one of those meetings, I kind of tend to feel excluded and reminds me of childhood, and picking teams and maybe she'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I'll be really careful about that. And you know what, we can plan a couple of days out of town. We've got some time, some vacation time we can use. And let's do that. Let's really make a point to do that. Now, all of a sudden, you're feeling much more relaxed. You're in your car. You're only going to spend 10 minutes. You've actually spent 25 minutes sitting in the parking lot. And you say, you know what? I have a really nice salad at home that I had made a few days ago. And I think I'm going to go home and eat that. I really don't need to have the cheesy burger and the fries and the shake. I think I'm just going to go home and have a really nice meal. And then I'm going to listen to some music and I'm going to go to bed early tonight. Right. And you notice you're feeling 100% better than when you drove in the parking lot of the fast food place. And you realize that had you gotten the cheesy burger and the fries and the shake, how awful you feel. Your stomach feels bad when you eat that food and you feel really sluggish and tired the next day. And you say, gosh, it wasn't like I had to white knuckle it and not have that food. I actually just took care of myself and I didn't want it. I really didn't want it. I wanted to go home and eat something healthy and I wanted to get a good night's sleep and I wanted to wake up tomorrow without a food hangover. And I'm so proud of myself and I can do this again. Right? There you have it.
That's fantastic. Really. Yeah. Let that all sink in. Because if I just stop all of a sudden in the middle of what I'm doing and I ask myself, what do I need? Like, what do you mean? What do I need?
Both my books, I have a page with 7 core emotions, like anger, sadness, where you can go down the list and you can look at all the different variations of anger, like rage, frustration, irritation, and you can, if you have trouble identifying your feelings, I always say to people, pull out your 7 core emotions and get in the habit of identifying emotions, right? Then I have, in the second book, I have a page, bodily sensations, right? Mm-hmm. Get in the habit of noticing, gee, I notice when I'm sad, there's like an achy feeling I get in my chest. So that's how sadness presents itself. And I notice when I'm angry, my fists feel clenched and I feel tension in my body. So you're getting to know how emotion presents in your body. And you can use those pages in the book. And there's one other charts in the book. There's one other chart called Stage of Life Emotional Needs, where you can determine, I guess in this, and oftentimes people will say, gosh, all my needs are like in the infant column, like I need a hug, I need mirroring, I need warmth, I need reassurance, right? And that's okay. I mean, sometimes a lot of the needs we have come from a long time ago, and they hadn't been met a long time ago. So you want to use these kind of supports, whether you're doing it from my books or you're finding, pages on the internet, charts on the internet of emotions and needs. Use some tools, to sit down with yourself and identify what, and the little small step that I taught today was identify what you're feeling, right? Feeling emotions and bodily sensations. Just start bringing in the inner nurturing voice to validate. So that's very calming and soothing to get validation. Then identify what you're needing, and then bring that inner nurture in again for reassurance again, and kindness and whatever else he is offering. Just a little tiny step that people can work with today, but it's all about, I just want to remind your listeners that it's all about connection. And where does creativity even come from? I mean, it comes from that feeling self place. And if that feeling self is nourished, I think creativity will flow even more. And if that feeling self is constrained and blocked, yes, there'll still be creativity, but maybe not the full range that you're capable of.
And it's a new perspective. We hear about blocks a lot. You have the writer's block, or you have the equivalent, and not the saying, but the fact. Painting, performing, anything, I imagine. So to think of our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with feeling, our own feelings and food, that can be just another block, or that can be the block. Like me personally, when my kids were little and I wasn't able to get to the creativity, sort of compensated by eating. That was something I did.
And you think to yourself, like when you say I wasn't able to get to the creativity, so I ate. Certainly if you're eating, you could be working on creativity for a minute. Like it was your own belief that you couldn't be creative.
Exactly. Yeah.
Raising your kids.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
It reminds me of when you're talking about, writer's block, like when I was writing my first book, I often hit these points in time where I was kind of feeling writer's block. And what I ended up identifying, I did my own work with myself, I was identifying that what was happening was that I was chronically getting overwhelmed, because it was like, okay, I've written chapter 1, but I've got 20 more chapters to write. I've written part of this chapter, but I have to finish this chapter and then write the 20 more chapters. So I would constantly get overwhelmed, and that would kind of paralyze me. Now, I was way beyond turning to food, but the point is that if I needed to address those emotions. And so I really sat down and I thought, overwhelm is going to probably be a constant companion, when I'm writing a book. And I think overwhelm is kind of a constant companion for anyone who's successful, because there's always more to do. The list is always growing. And at that time, I thought, I've got to find a way right away to address that emotion so that it doesn't block me, so that I can move forward with it. And I did. And it really helped my writing flow, because I wasn't getting overwhelmed all the time as much as I wasn't recycling these overwhelming thoughts all the time. It's another piece that we work on in my work is those self-defeating thoughts, like, oh my God, I have 20 more chapters to write, and I learned to reframe that and say, I only think about the chapter that I'm writing on. I don't focus on what's tomorrow or how many more I have to do. Today, I only focus on the chapter that I'm writing on, and there is no rush, and find a way to say that and for me, especially when I said there is no rush, because I'm not writing on a deadline, then I would calm down and the writing would flow again.
It's a very powerful tool you're giving. You can keep coming back to it, as life happens, because it does, thank God.
Yes, totally, as life happens.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you work with people? Like, what's your program like?
Well, I have a 12-week program. I do, of course, I do individual therapy and coaching, but I also have a 12-week program. And in the introduction, you read about the 12-week program being in Los Angeles. I also have it in a telecoaching format, so people can join the telecoaching program from anywhere in the world. So that's what's wonderful, is that You can do it from your own home, and you do it with me. It's a 12-week program. I'll actually have 13 weeks with me, kind of coaching you through it. And basically what I do with, whether I'm working with individual clients or I'm working with the 12-week program, is we just go step by step, kind of learning the skills, learning how to, connect to ourselves, to stay with emotions, process through emotions, and then there are so many other skills. Like I said, reframing, catching and reframing self-defeating thoughts. We also work on loving and accepting ourselves today. Oftentimes people come to see me and they want to lose weight. That's their motivation, is they want to lose weight. And I always say to them, the focus needs to be off of losing weight for now. The focus needs to be on gaining skill. Because when you gain the skill, the weight loss will be effortless. You'll never have to go on another diet. Does that mean you won't change your eating habits? You probably will change your eating habits if they're not really supporting your health. But it will be effortless to change those eating habits. And I walk everyone through that, through building those skills, learning to love and accept yourself, reframing some of those self-defeating thoughts. We also address trauma. If you've got a lot of old pain from abuse or an abusive or traumatic background, or a lot of missed out on a lot of nurturance, we need to do some grief work. Okay, so we need to lift up some of that old pain. Some of that old pain may be blocking you from forward movement. So there's a lot of stuff that we cover in the program. We also cover what I call body balancing principles. We talk about eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full and paying attention to those signals. So we talked earlier about paying attention to our emotions, right, and our bodily sensations. We also need to pay attention to hunger and fullness cues. We need to know what hunger feels like, know what fullness feels like, know what cravings feel like, right? Most of us do, but some of us don't know how the different levels of fullness and how to stop a little bit sooner. We also talk about nutrition and adding nutrient-dense foods and trying to crowd out some of the non-nutrient dense foods like the processed foods and too much foods of animal origin, which are fiberless foods. We talk about, excuse me, we address body and brain imbalances. So these are all things that affect our eating. So if you have low brain chemicals, if you have a mood disorder, if you have hormonal imbalances, if you have, any of those body type things, the brain type things, also sleep. Are you getting rejuvenative sleep? That's really important in terms of regulating our eating habits. Are you getting enough exercise? And I don't even talk about it in terms of exercise. I talk about it in terms of movement. Are you moving your body? We were meant to move all day long. We walk, we hoe, we tow, we lift. If you're just sitting in a chair all day long, that's not obviously very good for your body. It's not good for your brain. It's not good for your emotional system. Talk about all that. And then we also talk about what I call soul care practices in the program. So we talk about learning how to quiet your mind through meditative type techniques. Talk about learning how to let go of some of the perfectionistic attachment type things that we have going on. We talk about filling your life up with purpose and meaning. We talk about filling your life up with nourishing connections. And we close out the program talking about practicing gratitude, which is a healing I call it a healing self-care skill. It really just rewires your brain, I think, to practice gratitude regularly. So we cover the gamut, mind, body, and spirit.
Beautiful. This is so good.
Yeah, and the self-validation and the nourishing come from that inner nurturer, and that's the key piece to everything, is the building of an inner nurturing voice, a voice that can regulate and that can calm and soothe and offer love. That's a critical piece, is building and strengthening that voice, which strengthens that part of the brain, which helps you very easily and effortlessly regulate wayward behaviors.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And you have a free gift, chapters from two books.
Chapters from both books. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Get started learning about these skills.
What's one thing that you're working on these days that's really lighting you up?
Let's see. That's a good question. Probably I have full-time care of an elderly mother. So what I'm working on is getting her in a better place so that I can get back to more of my creative projects. Yeah, I'd like to write book number 3, but I've been a little derailed with taking care of my mother, but that's an important thing to do in life also, right? Is to take care of those we love. So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, really, best of luck with everything that you're doing. And thank you so much for the work that you do and for holding a light for all these beautiful possibilities. To our audience, remember to keep it creative and have a great rest of your day.